right, our guy, Daniel Wallach, he's always nice enough to come on with us. He is a sports law analyst, and obviously he's a lawyer. Becker and Polyakov, and just Google Sports Law Blog and follow him on Twitter at Wallach Legal, WALLACH Legal. He joins us on the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline, and we're always appreciative when you do so, Daniel. The Troy Vincent tape comes out promising Adrian Peterson only a 2-game suspension. How does that help the case of Adrian Peterson, if at all?
Well, I mean, it helps it. It definitely helps it somewhat. But the stronger argument is, and this is what's going to be raised in the federal lawsuit, that the maximum suspension under the existing personal conduct policy was 2 games. Every domestic violence discipline that had ever been meted out by the NFL had been capped at 2 games. And what Troy Vincent was recorded as saying is very consistent with Adrian Peterson's argument. So I don't think it's the smoking gun, but it underlines and underscores what Adrian Peterson's principal argument is in this latest lawsuit, that you can't that the NFL acted improperly by taking a new policy that was enacted in August and applying it to conduct which took place in May. I mean, as a legal principle, you can't do that. And Harold Henderson may have bought it, but federal judge David Doty is probably going to take a dim view of that.
Ooh, and David Doty, he's anti-NFL, isn't he?
Seems like every judge in the District of Minnesota where this lawsuit was filed is anti-NFL. The NFL has a horrendous track record in the Minnesota federal courts. They've lost consistently before David Doty. They lost the Brady case back in 2011, at least in the district court level. They got it reversed on appeal. And then the Kevin Williams and Pat Williams drug suspensions were overturned by a Minnesota federal judge a couple of years back. So I think the odds got much better for Adrian Peterson this morning when he drew David Doty as his trial judge. I mean, the odds of that happening were 1 in 18. There are 18 sitting federal district court judges in that courthouse. He got the best one. So his outlook just turned brighter.
Yeah, I think you said it best. He kind of won the lottery with that judge. He had the 1 in 18 chance. Dan, when you see how the NFL in general has handled the Ray Rice thing, the Adrian Peterson thing, do you almost shake your head at how bad they botched it? And I know people have made a big deal about how they have botched it. From a law perspective, is this even worse maybe than people realize how bad they're botching some of these things?
Yes, from a legal perspective, what the NFL is doing here is rather than provide the players with due process and an objective ruling, the NFL is caving into their sponsors and to the whims of certain outlets in the media and from fans, and that's not how the disciplinary process should work. Number one, there has to be some objectivity, and there has to be a sense of proportionality. The punishment has to fit the crime. And on the one hand, you can't compare Adrian Peterson's situation to Ray Rice. Ray Rice had an intent to harm his wife. He knocked her out. He intended to hurt her. He only ends up with a 2-game suspension. By contrast, Adrian Peterson acted negligently or recklessly in disciplining his child, and he gets a full season or virtually a full season suspension. You can't have arbitrary discipline like that in how you handle the players. And I think the court, or in particular David Doty, will look at this shifting. Just seems like every time the NFL, creates one problem, it opens up another set of problems, and the judge is going to look at how inconsistent this discipline has been.
Daniel Wallach with us. He is with Becker and Polyakov, sports law, legal analyst, and many other things other than just sports. But he is with us on that account, I am sure. And also Google Sports Law Blog. He is with Sports Law Blog, and you can follow him on Twitter at Wallach Legal, WALLACH Legal. He joins us on the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline. All right, let me play devil's advocate. You talk about the 2 games. The 2-game suspension that we all thought was the case in the old personal conduct policy, which would have been in effect when this all went down with Adrian Peterson to begin with. But what would you say if I just came back and went, yeah, it's 2 games, but remember, under the old policy, Roger Goodell was, pardon the pun, but judge, jury, executioner. So he can rule with an iron fist. So that argument's moot, is it not?
Well, Judge Barbara Jones made a statement like that in her opinion last week, and Harold Henderson said the same thing this week when he issued his opinion. But the truth is, while Roger Goodell does have the ultimate discretion, that discretion cannot be exercised arbitrarily or capriciously. And the argument that Adrian Peterson's lawyers are making is that under the then existing personal conduct policy, the maximum that had ever been given for a domestic violence offender was 2 games. And there's no equivalence here. Adrian Peterson's conduct, as horrific as it was, falls below the lines of an intentional criminal act. It's a negligent act. And I believe, first of all, anyone looking at this objectively or a judge looking at it will be alarmed by the disproportion in the punishment given to Peterson relative to any other punishment that has historically been given out by the NFL since the personal conduct policy was enacted. You're talking about 7 years of discipline in God knows how many cases where the worst that anyone ever got was 2 games. And for a negligent, reckless act, you're going to give Adrian Peterson 18 games or 16 games, especially after Troy Vincent is recorded on tape as promising that the most he would get is 2 games, and that he would be sentenced or disciplined under the old policy, which was the then current policy. So I think the NFL is going to have a real difficult time justifying this punishment in a court of law, although as the prevailing party, the NFL is in a better spot than Adrian Peterson is. The burden of proof is on Adrian Peterson, and that is a somewhat uphill battle, but it is one I believe he will succeed with.
Dan, I asked you what you thought about how the NFL has handled things so far. How do you feel the NFLPA has handled their side of things so far?
Well, I'm not a big fan of DeMaurice Smith. I believe he gave away the store during the last collective bargaining agreement. The problem that the players are facing today is a direct result of what I consider, the NFLPA caving in several years back. They agreed to a 10-year deal, and they agreed that Roger Goodell would have this ultimate authority. And it's going to be difficult for the NFLPA to complain about it now. The problem is, while the players agreed to a certain amount of bias and partiality on behalf of Goodell, they didn't agree on this. What they agreed was that Roger Goodell would exercise his disciplinary authority in a reasonable, non-arbitrary way. But the NFLPA only has itself to blame for this, and it is the only collective bargaining agreement among the leagues that lasts as long as 10 years without any reopening. It's a horrible deal for the players, and now they're paying the consequences for it.
All right, last one here, Dan. What's the next thing that will happen in this whole mess?
The next thing that will happen is Adrian Peterson's lawyers, or rather the NFL Players Association, will file a motion for a temporary restraining order seeking the immediate reinstatement of Adrian Peterson, pending a full hearing on a motion for a preliminary injunction. And I know that I just gave you a lot of legal jargon, but in essence...
Yes, Kazuna.
In essence, the NFLPA wants Adrian Peterson restored to active duty immediately, and they have a good chance. And we're going to find out within the next day or two whether such a motion will be filed, and Judge Doty is expected to act quickly on it. So we'll find out before the week's out what Adrian Peterson's status is.
One more, just one syllable. Yes or no, according to Daniel Wallach, Daniel Wallach thinks that Adrian Peterson will get at least 1 game in this year.
He won't play any games because the team would not be obligated to necessarily play him, but I believe he will be reinstated. And he'll be paid whatever games he's been docked. I think it's a long shot right now to expect that he'll squeeze 1 game in, given his current condition, when you consider that the league season will be ending in 13 days. That might be a long shot, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I like Adrian Peterson's chances on this motion.
At Wallach Legal, WALLACH Legal. Thank him on Twitter for coming on, and give him a follow, and Google Sports Law blog as well. We're always grateful, Daniel. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, and I'm grateful as well. We'll see what happens here. Have a great day.